Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. Happy Monday, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody out there. I hope your day and your week are off to a fantastic start. We've got a new day, which of course means a new NBA player prop video to share with you guys. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. With a new day comes some new opportunities to go ahead and make some money. I've got a little 5-leaf clover here on St. Patrick's Day. Pretty corny St. Patrick's Day pun. 5 player props coming your way today in this very video, guys. Hope you guys had a very fun St. Patrick's Day weekend. Hope you guys had fun. We're safe. If you guys are nursing some hangovers today, I don't blame you. St. Patrick's Day being on a Monday is a cruel, cruel thing. Hopefully these player props can help those who are still recovering, we'll say, from the weekend. Hopefully this makes your day a little bit better. 5 player props coming your way. No time to waste. Let's jump right into today's picks. Jumping right on over to the outlier screen, our first of 5 player props in today's NBA slate. We are targeting the Miami Heat New York Knicks game, 7:30 p.m. tip-off. We've got OG Anunoby of the New York Knicks over 17.5 points. Now look, guys, I spent a lot of time researching these player props, going through all the numbers, trying to find the best data, the best matchups, the best player props each and every day I do a video. I love this Anunoby prop already to begin with, but my thoughts were basically confirmed when I saw in the last 25 minutes, the odds have spiked drastically. Literally 25 minutes ago, you could get this for minus 115 on DraftKings. Now, you can still find it for minus 120 on BetMGM, which is what we're going to take. So minus 120, BetMGM, OG Anunoby, over 17.5 points. But the fact that DraftKings, the line has jumped from minus 115 to minus 145 in a matter of 25 minutes, that tells you that A, a lot of people are hammering this one, but B, we've got a pretty solid player prop on our hands here. Just sort of confirms what I already believed about this player prop, and it makes a lot of sense. The data, very solid here for Anunoby. He's cashed the over in 7 of his last 10 games, averaging 19.8 points per game over his last 10 games. Now, the overall data actually isn't fantastic with this player prop. You see so far this year, a 43% hit rate on this over, 26 out of 60 games he's cashed it, averaging just 16.75 points per game this year. Now, what really has changed of late is the injury to Jalen Brunson. We can go ahead and show you guys the data with Brunson being out for the New York Knicks. So far this year, Anunoby has played 5 games without Jalen Brunson. He's cashed the over in 4 of those 5 games, averaging 20.6 points per game over those last 5 games without Brunson. He's played obviously 4 straight from March 7th through now. Brunson's out until probably early April with a I believe it was a knee sprain or an ankle sprain. So yeah, so the numbers looking pretty good. Obviously with Brunson being out, his scoring numbers definitely skyrocket to almost 21 points per game. They need him to do more, obviously, with Jalen Brunson not playing. So that obviously helps our case here. We also have the head-to-head data, which is pretty solid. 3 of his last 4 meetings with the Miami Heat, he's cashed the over. That is a 75% hit rate, averaging 19 points per game against the Miami Heat across their last 4 meetings. They played 2 times this year, back on October 30th. He did not hit the over, just 11 points in that game. But their most recent matchup, just about 2 weeks ago, back on March 2nd, he had 23 points against Miami. So some pretty good head-to-head data there as well. Versus power forwards this year, Miami 16th in points allowed to power forwards overall this year. If you look at the more recent data, they're still about middle of the road, but overall, it's a pretty solid matchup for the most part. It's not like Miami is this great defensive team versus the 4 spot. With Brunson being out, we've seen Anunoby take more shots, score a little bit more. I don't see why he shouldn't here on the second night of a back-to-back as well. Correction, they are not on a back-to-back. They actually played on Saturday, not yesterday. So it is their second game in 3 days. But looking at the data here, looking at the days of rest for OG Anunoby, when he's had at least 1 day off in between, when he's had exactly one day off in between games, 100% hit rate over his last 5 games, averaging 22.8 points per game over his last 5 games, again, when having 1 day of rest in between games. So pretty solid player prop here to kick off today's video. All right, guys, our second player prop in today's slate is a controversial one, to say the least. We've got Pistons, Pelicans, 8 p.m. tip-off. I'm going Zion Williamson under 23.5 points here. We got this for minus 112 over on FanDuel. Now, I've seen a lot of people really hammering Zion Williamson. The numbers show the public money has been all on the over for Zion's points, which is why you've seen the line increase. Look at the line just yesterday at 10:30 p.m. last night. This line opened at 21.5. It's now jumped all the way up to 23.5 just overnight. So you do see a lot of people hammering this Zion prop. And for good reason, I get it. When Zion's been healthy, when he's played, he has been fantastic this year for the Pelicans, putting up some really big numbers. Now, from a data standpoint, the under data actually isn't that terrible. You see 6 of his last 10 games, he's cashed the under. He is averaging 23.9 points per game over his last 10 games. He's always hovering around this 23.5 point line. Overall this year, a 50% hit rate on the under, half of the time, he cashes the under 14 out of 28 games this year. Again, bit of a smaller sample size with Zion, of course, but a 50% hit rate on the under, averaging 24.21 points per game overall this season. So again, he's averaging more than what the line is, but he does cash the under a decent amount this year. Very small sample size from a head-to-head data standpoint. He's only played Detroit one time in the last year and a half. Back on March 24th of last season, he had 36 points in a really big performance. However, a very different Detroit team, a very different New Orleans team at that time. Look at the last 5 game data. He's cashed this under in 4 consecutive games. But again, he's averaging 23.8 points per game over his last 5. He obviously had that big 37-point performance against the Lakers. But yeah, overall, we got a pretty solid data point on him. I mean, like I said, it's not the best data in the world, but it's not too shabby. Now, the real reason why I like this player prop, and it's going to mislead a lot of people, looking at the overall defensive numbers for Detroit this year, they ranked 28th in the NBA in points allowed to opposing power forwards. That's bottom 3 in the league, and most people are seeing that and are saying it's a really good matchup for Zion. It's a really good matchup for Zion. They're selling it. But if you do take a little bit of a closer look, it's not as good as that looks. It's a little too good to be true. If you look at the more recent data for Detroit, they actually are one of the better defensive teams in the NBA versus power forwards. As a matter of fact, over the last 15 games, they are top 5 in the NBA in defense versus power forwards, giving up less than 20 points per game to the power forward position. So the overall numbers lead you to believe they're one of the worst teams, which is why Zion would be a favorable matchup in this spot. But the truth is, over the last couple weeks, Detroit versus power forwards, there have not been many teams that are better than them at defending the power forward position. Now, Zion is one of those players that when he's healthy and he's playing at his best, it really doesn't matter your defensive rank. Jokic, Giannis, Luka, SGA, Anthony Edwards. There are certain players where it doesn't matter what the defensive matchup is. They can rise above it because they are superstars. Zion is in that category. It doesn't seem like it because he's missing 90% of the time. But when he plays and when he's healthy in particular, this guy can do it all. And I do think that this is still a very risky play, regardless of the fact that Detroit is playing so well defensively. But I'm willing to go ahead and fade the public. I'm willing to go ahead and take the risk here with Zion under 23.5 points, just because I see so many people. It's such a public play. I think fading it could be the way to go. And the fact that Detroit, they have been playing so well defensively of late, they could at least keep him here to 20, 21, 22, keep him just below that line. So that's our second player prop in today's slate. By the way, guys, if you are watching today's video at this point, we're going to do a little St. Patrick's Day giveaway. All you got to write on the comment section below is St. Patty's Day, or St. Patrick's Day, whatever really you want, whatever variation. St. Patty's Day, St. Patrick's Day, St. Patrick's, St. Patty's. You want to put anything, even if you want to put a shamrock down below. Anything for St. Patrick's Day, and I'm going to pick one commenter, regardless of how we do today in our picks, to win a free $25 Amazon gift card, a little St. Patty's Day giveaway. So yeah, comment just something with St. Patrick's Day. Honestly, just comment down below, and I'll pick somebody, whether it be a 4-leaf clover, or St. Patrick's, or St. Patty's Day, whatever you want to go ahead and comment. Just comment something St. Patrick's Day related down below. And one lucky commenter will win a free $25 Amazon gift card. All right, guys, moving on to our third player prop in today's slate. We are targeting the Pacers-Timberwolves game, 8 p.m. tip-off. We're going Julius Randle of the Minnesota Timberwolves over 25.5 points plus rebounds. We are getting this for -118 over on FanDuel. It is, of course, available on multiple sportsbooks for varying odds. Now, the recent data is mediocre. 5 of his last 10 games, he's cashed the over, averaging 24.3 points plus rebounds per game over his last 10 games. So if we go ahead and stretch the data out to the entire season view, it's not too bad. 55% hit rate. He's cashed the over in 31 out of 56 games this year, averaging 25.89 points plus rebounds per game overall this season. So the data's okay, not great. The real reason why I love this player prop is the matchup here with the Indiana Pacers. Now, from a head-to-head standpoint, again, small sample size. He's played them one time last year when he was a member of the New York Knicks back on December 30th, so well over a year ago. He had a massive game, 28 points and 12 rebounds in that game against Indiana. How much can we take from that game? I don't know how much because, again, different team, different circumstance, everything different. I don't even know if the Pacers had Pascal Siakam at the time of that game. Can't remember exactly when he got traded last year, so very different circumstances there. Not a lot to go off of from a head-to-head standpoint. But the matchup is fantastic. Look at the right side of the screen here. Indiana versus power forwards this year, 26th in points allowed, 26th in rebounds allowed to the power forward position, respectively. Both of those are bottom 5 in the NBA versus power forwards. So really solid head-to-head matchup. If you narrow it down, the scoring defense has gotten a little bit better for Indiana. They are not bottom 5. They're about middle of the road in terms of points allowed to power forward over the last 7 to 15 games or so. Rebounds, though, they are like, I think, second or third most rebounds allowed to power forwards over the last 15 games or so. So Indiana, really good head-to-head matchup here in terms of where they rank defensively versus power forwards. Randall has been playing very well lately. The Timberwolves in general have been playing very well lately. He's going to cover this mostly in points, but I do think with the matchup at hand, with how many rebounds Indiana is giving up to power forwards right now, I do think he should have a healthy enough amount of rebounds where even if he doesn't score, let's say, 20 plus points, let's say he only scores like 17 points, I do think he should be able to grab enough rebounds in this game to get him over the top. So I really like this spot here for Julius Randle over 25.5 points plus rebounds. All right, guys, our fourth player prop in today's slate. We're moving on to the Warriors-Nuggets game, 10 p.m. tip-off. We're going Nikola Jokic over 12.5 rebounds, which we're getting for minus 110 over on BetMGM, available on many sports books for varying odds. Now, I did tail this one a couple days ago last week, which, by the way, last week, up and down week overall, if you include parlays and single bets in general. We went 8-10 last week, so it was a losing week for us last week. But, we had a really good, strong start to the week, so at least it made it a little less bad, a little less terrible. Definitely shooting to do better this week. But Jokic over 12.5 rebounds was one of those losing props I handed out last week. And he only had a couple, I forget which game it was. Actually, we can go ahead and look right here. It was this game versus the Lakers. He had just 7 rebounds in that game. But you do see overall the data is pretty solid. 8 of his last 10, he's cashed the over, averaging 14 rebounds per game. Overall this year, a 58% hit rate on this over. He's averaging 12.84 rebounds per game this season. And from a head-to-head standpoint, the data is pretty decent. 3 of his last 5 meetings with the Golden State Warriors, he's cashed the over, averaging 12.4 rebounds per game. Now, he's only played them once this year, back on December 3rd, and he did miss the over. He had 10 rebounds in that game. However, look at the rebound chances. Well, unfortunately, we don't have that little uh-oh there. But I'm sure he left some rebounds on the table. He did play 40 minutes in that game, so I'm sure there were plenty of opportunities for him to grab more rebounds. Looking versus centers this year, the Warriors bottom 4 in the NBA in rebounds allowed to opposing centers, giving up 13.7 rebounds per game. And over the last 7 to 15 games in those data ranges, right, from 7 games, or even if you go on to stretch it further, the last 15 games, Golden State still bottom of the NBA, bottom 5 in rebounds allowed to opposing centers. So overall this year and in the recent data, Golden State consistently have struggled in terms of allowing rebounds to big guys. So still a pretty solid player prop here for Jokic. Although the last time he didn't cash it, the data seems to be pretty solid and the matchup seems to be pretty solid. And our fifth and final player prop in today's slate, guys, is the riskiest one. The data is not very good, but I love the matchup and the circumstance surrounding this player prop. It's Jaren Jackson Jr. in the Grizzlies-Kings game, 10 p.m. tip-off. We're going Jaren Jackson Jr. over 24.5 points, minus 105 over on BetMGM, available on many sports books for varying odds. And yeah, guys, look, I'm not going to spend too much time on the data because I'm just going to be transparent. It's not good. He's only cashed the over in 3 of his last 10 games, averaging 20.1 points per game. Overall this year, just a 36% hit rate on this over, averaging 22.7 points per game this year. Like I said, not very good data from a head-to-head standpoint either. 2 of his last 5 meetings with Sacramento, he's cashed the over, averaging 21.6 points per game. Now, the only interesting part is the last time they played back on January 3rd, he did have 28 points in that game versus the Kings. So, Tasso, why do you like this player prop? Well, first and foremost, Sacramento defensively this year have not been particularly great versus centers. Now, overall this year, they are 19th in the NBA in points allowed to opposing centers, giving up 18.4 points per game. If you look at the recent data, they are slightly better, but still about middle of the road in terms of points allowed to centers. They're not a great defensive team, but not the worst either. So the matchup isn't terrible, but the key thing here is the circumstance of Ja Morant not playing, who is officially out. You also have Santi Aldama, who's a game-time decision here. But you see this year, when Ja Morant is out, the data still not great, but slightly better. 44% hit rate. You do see his scoring numbers do increase. An extra 2 points per game by average when Ja Morant does not play, averaging 24.04 points per game without Ja. Look at the last 5 games without Ja Morant. 3 of his last 5, he's cashed the over, averaging 24.6 points per game. And from a head-to-head standpoint, he's played the Sacramento Kings 3 times in the last 2 years without Ja Morant. He's cashed the over in 2 of those 3 games, and he's averaging 25 points per game against the Kings without Ja Morant. The important part is the last time they played this year on January 3rd, He had 28 points. John Morant did not play in that game. When Ja goes out, Jaren Jackson Jr. becomes the primary scorer. Now, a lot of people believe that Desmond Bane, for example, would be the primary scorer. Bane definitely does take more shots, but he does serve as more of a facilitator when Ja is out. When Ja is out, Desmond Bane, his assist numbers do rise, so it could be a good Desmond Bane over assist player prop kind of day. I'm personally not going to take it, but you could. But he becomes a little bit more of a facilitator and not as much of a scorer. Jaren Jackson Jr., especially with the matchup on hand here with Domantas Sabonis, who is not a great defensive big man. Jaren Jackson Jr. should score a healthy amount of points in this game. By far the riskiest. I don't even know if I'm going to put a full unit. I might put like 0.8 units or 0.75 units because it definitely is a riskier player prop here, especially if we're getting it from minus 105 odds too. I might be willing to play a little bit with the units there. You'll see in the final post in the pinned comment what my unit play will be on this. But yeah, definitely some risk involved. I just do like the matchup. And the last time they played without John Morant, literally about 2 months ago, a little over 2 months ago, he did have a pretty solid performance with 28 points in that game. He played 34 minutes, and he actually didn't even play that well. 9 for 21 shooting, 43% from the floor. So he could have done even more than that. He could have had an even larger game than what he had. But the fact that he took 21 shots in that game tells me that when Ja's out, a higher volume for Jaren Jackson Jr. is coming. And he does play a little bit power forward as well. And honestly, versus power forwards, it's actually even better. 26th in points allowed to power forwards, 24.3 points per game. Over the last 7 to 15 games, the data is pretty much consistent. So whether Jaren Jackson Jr. plays some minutes at the 5 or at the 4, either way, you got a really solid defensive matchup. Even better if he's playing the 4, and Zach Edey is going to play tonight, so he will play a good amount of minutes at the 4 spot. It's a pretty good matchup overall here for Jaren Jackson Jr. That's a 5th and final player prop in today's slate. Guys, thank you very much for watching one more time. Please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. I'll be back tomorrow with another NBA player prop video. Until then, have a happy St. Patrick's Day. I hope you guys have a great week, a great start to the week. Let's go ahead and bounce back. Like I said, it wasn't a terrible week last week. We did go 8-10 overall, including parlays. Could have done better. I think this week we're going to have a nice, strong week with a little Irish luck. So thank you guys very much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, hope you're all winners. Let's go ahead and make some money.